Welcome, everyone. My name is Patrick Russell, and I am the chair for the ADR section of the Health and Wellness Committee, as well as the chair-elect for the ADR section of the Florida Bar. When I'm not doing this important work, I'm also a trial lawyer and certified mediator with the Miami office of Lydecker Diaz, where I founded a mediation group. On behalf of the ADR section of the Florida Bar, I welcome you to our first ever Health and Wellness series, Be Well, Stay Well. This is a project that we have been working on for more than 2 years, and more than ever, I believe that health and wellness is an important issue, especially during these times, and one that cannot be ignored. We are very excited to bring you 6 compelling and thoughtful webinars that address health and wellness from different perspectives. All of our panel members are experts in their own right and have wonderful tips, insights, and ideas to share with you. We want to thank our participating sponsors who have made a large portion of this program possible, which includes the University of Miami and the Legal Services of Greater Miami. To begin our program, we would like to first share with you an introductory video from our Florida Bar President, Dory Foster Morales.
Hi, I'm Dory Foster Morales, President of the Florida Bar. I'm so thrilled to have been invited by Oscar Sanchez as chair and Patrick Russell as vice chair of the ADR section to give brief introductions to this important webinar series, Be Well, Stay Well. Thank you, Oscar and Patrick. I do applaud the ADR section for shining a light on health and wellness, especially during this new and stressful time when all of us are still adjusting to the new normal as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a practicing lawyer, wife, and mother, and small firm owner, I'm extremely passionate about health and wellness in the legal profession because I understand the stresses of balancing a career, our clients' needs, along with all our other personal responsibilities for family and friends. Before the pandemic, we knew the life of a lawyer was fraught with emotional difficulties. In 2016, the ABA and the Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation published their study of nearly 13,000 lawyers. The study found that approximately 28%, 19%, and 23% are struggling with some level of depression, anxiety, and stress, respectively. And when this pandemic was added into the mix, it heightened those issues. Life became even more complicated. The depression, anxiety, and stress that lawyers are already feeling may be intensified. I want all of my fellow lawyers and members of the Florida Bar to know they are not alone. It's okay to open up. It's okay to be imperfect, and it's okay to get help. Please take advantage of the many pandemic resources on the bar's website, especially the Florida Lawyers Helpline, 1-833-FL1-WELL. This is a 24/7 free and confidential member benefit, which provides counseling and referral for up to 3 free therapy sessions with a licensed mental health counselor. Remember that your professional success includes your happiness and your well-being. Thank you.
Today's session is our first session of the Wellness series, and it is titled Mindfulness, Social Connection, and Well-Being, Resolving Inner Disputes and Reaching Resolution. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Professor Scott Rogers. Scott Rogers is a founder and director of the University of Miami School of Law's Mindfulness and Law program, where he teaches mindful ethics, mindful leadership, and mindfulness in law, and he co-founded the University of Miami's Mindfulness Research and Practice Initiative. Since 2010, Professor Rogers has been collaborating on neuroscience research, exploring the enduring brain and behavior changes that may accompany mindfulness training programs. Professor Rogers is also the creator of JuraSight, one of the first CLE programs in the country to integrate mindfulness and the law, and broke ground introducing neuroscience research along with contemplative practices in the legal context. A nationally recognized leader in the field of mindfulness, Professor Rogers has taught mindfulness to thousands of legal professionals, including lawyers, judges, law students, law faculty, and has taught mindfulness to physicians, parents, pilots, firefighters, accountants, athletes, business leaders, financial advisors, and therapists. In 2012, Professor Rogers was awarded the Sookie Williams DBR Award for exemplary service to the Miami-Dade legal community. And in 2015, he was awarded the Law Faculty Professionalism Award by the Florida Bar. He is the 2018 recipient of the Mindful Kids Miami's Ambassador of Mindfulness Award for his more than 20 years of service sharing mindfulness with parents, teachers, and children. In addition, Professor Rogers is the author of The 6-Minute Solution, a mindfulness primer for lawyers, mindfulness for law students, attending a physician's introduction to mindfulness, mindful parenting, and the recently released The Elements of Mindfulness. He lectures across the country, speaks at law and scientific conferences, and has been interviewed in newspapers and magazines for his work on mindfulness. We are so pleased and happy to have Professor Rogers speak to you today.
Thank you, Patrick, and everyone to help us all come together to explore this very important topic. And I'm so delighted to have 3 extraordinary colleagues with me, dear friends, gifted colleagues in the area that we are exploring, mindfulness, social connection, and well-being. And each will speak to a different pillar or aspect of how it is that we can be attentive to our own well-being at this time in particular, perhaps, but in all times. And so I'm so delighted that in a few moments we'll be hearing from Janet Stearns. Janet is the Dean of Students at the University of Miami School of Law. She's an ABA Commissioner on Lawyer Assistance Program. She writes and she talks on this topic broadly. She's a national leader on lawyer and law student wellness, and I have learned a great deal from her over many, many years of friendship and collaboration. Josh Rooks is a clinical psychologist. He is a gifted mindfulness teacher. He's also a mindfulness researcher. Together over the years, we have done research looking at the effect of mindfulness trainings on the structure and function of the brain, and in areas most recently as it relates to this very question of social connection and feelings of isolation. And Gilbert Squires, a dear friend, a former president, immediate past president of the Dade County Bar Association, a fellow of the College of Commercial Arbitrators. In the past, he has been and continues to be a super lawyer, a rising star, and perhaps of greatest interest and intrigue for our time together, he is an Aikido master. And this becomes relevant as we begin to learn and explore a little bit about mindfulness, well-being, social connection, and resolving the inner disputes towards reaching our own resolution. As Janet will share with us, among other things, ways that we can mentally and cognitively reframe and flow into our experiences as opposed to resist them, which we tend to do at times. That doesn't necessarily serve us well. Josh, with his background in clinical psychology and mindfulness, will help us understand this observational, observing and noticing, this mindful lens onto our experience, especially as it relates to feelings of isolation and perhaps some interesting surprises about the value of feeling alone. And then moving us into a more movement environment, because really this is all about breaking free and moving freely. Gilbert will, with his expertise, both in the law and in Aikido, share with us insights in that regard. And then I'll share with you all a little bit, a movement practice that I think you'll find to be helpful and tie together our time together. So without further ado, Janet, please, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Scott. I am eternally grateful to Scott for our longtime friendship that actually started one fateful day at a meeting of the Florida Bar and about 12, 13 years ago. And we have been engaged in a conversation together ever since about law student well-being. And every moment has been a joy, Scott. And let me also really thank Debbie Foster Morales for really using the power of the presidency to shine such a bright light on this critically important topic of lawyer well-being. As Scott said, I am the Dean of Students at the University of Miami Law School. And when I am not taking care of my twin sons, or my 1,200 law students, who I think of as my extended family. I am engaged in a national conversation on law student well-being through the American Bar Association Commission on Lawyer Assistance Programs. And we are thrilled to be celebrating Law Student Mental Health Day together with International Mental Health Day this Saturday. So this kicks off a week long of important activities. And I'm so honored to be starting this series. I feel a great burden as the first speaker of the first in this series, to try to shine some light in a positive way on where we are and how we can reframe this moment. And so I am calling my remarks the gift of the pandemic, the gift of this moment that we can all recognize. And I think in some level, maybe some of us in South Florida have had some experience with reframing. We have lived through some difficult hurricanes and other difficult moments in our community where we have been called to rethink priorities and to recognize what is most precious and essential in all of our lives. And I realized I was called to this image here that you see in front of you. This image was first brought to me by the deans of students of Tulane and Loyola law schools shortly after Hurricane Katrina. And I printed this out, and actually this paper is quite yellow and tattered right now, but I always have it with me. And it stands for something that they shared, which was after Hurricane Katrina, the students at their law schools, while they suffered, they also gained some incredible life lessons that never, ever could have been taught, but for the fact of Hurricane Katrina. And one of the deans shared this image, the Chinese symbol for crisis, which is actually made up of two separate Chinese symbols, one for danger, dangerous, and the other for opportunity. And this I want to suggest is really how we have to think about this moment we are in as well. That it is not without danger, but it is also with great opportunity if we can find that moment and see that. So moving on to the next slide, you know, I was called to this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, which Sharon Salzberg quotes in one of her wonderful books. And Emerson says, "What is life but the angle of vision?" And so I want to suggest that we all have to perhaps think about the angle with which we are looking at this moment and how we can reframe. I think Josh will talk to us more about some of the skills that we can gain that create the ability to focus and choose our focus in these moments. But partly the point here is that we can actually choose and make an intentional, mindful decision about how to perceive this moment of the pandemic and about the gifts and the opportunities that are here. So this also came to me because I was listening. I have been doing a little more podcasting during this pandemic while I walk, and I do a lot of walking, both pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. And I've been listening to a podcast from a former student of mine who's actually, I would say, become a teacher of mine. Claire is a passionate yogi and world traveler and deeply mindful person. And in her podcast, she was talking about living courageously. And she said, if we could take this moment to release some of our fears in this world, she said, the pandemic would have been a success. And I just had this big wow while I was walking out Old Cutler and listening to this podcast on the Light and Being series, which I would commend to all of you. The pandemic would have been a success. Not something that we often talk about, but what would it look like for this pandemic to be a success right now? And so this has had me thinking about this theme in recent days, and as I was thinking about my remarks today. In what ways has this pandemic been a success for each and every one of us? What have we gained from these months since March when we went into quarantine. And so I would invite you, and if we look at the next slide, perhaps if we could all take a moment, and hopefully if you're not driving, you might even want to close your eyes for a moment or take a deep breath and think hard. Thanks to the pandemic, I have had the opportunity to do what? Fill that moment in. What have you had the opportunity to do in these past 6-7 months? And maybe if you're called to, you might want to share in the box here. I am, as I know we all are eager for connection, and one way that we find that connection is by actually communicating with one another. But think about what you have gained. And I have so many things that I have gained. Opportunities and connection with my children, opportunities and connection to do things with myself and for myself that but for the rest of this chaotic world I don't always have. But what are some of these things for each of us? And how can we really embrace and see that as an opportunity, as a positive, and not just a negative at this time? So maybe we could move on to the next slide and think hard about this question for a moment. After the pandemic is over, I hope that I will be able to continue to do, what is that thing? What is that thing that perhaps you've had an opportunity that you hope to take with you when the life goes back to what it was before? Opportunities with family or children, efficiencies gained by technology, time for personal development, different patterns in how we eat, perhaps, what we eat, how we cook, how we spend money, how we think about our relationship and our, and our priorities in this world. What are some of these things that we might hope to continue? And again, each and every one of us are going to have different answers to that question, but they're all good. If we can focus on that good and to focus on the positive that is coming from this moment. And again, I would invite everybody to take the opportunity as you're pondering to think about journaling more on some of these questions and continuing to evolve and to shine a light on these things that are positive that coming from this moment. And so I wanted to just take a moment, and if we move to the next slide, Scott, to say that, again, many of you I know who are here in our local community have had the opportunity to come over to the University of Miami. It is an amazing place to walk and meditate and learn law. But I wanted to share with all of you one of my favorite, very special spots on our campus. This is actually around Lake Osceola, and we have in our midst, not recognized by everyone, but a little gem that is a labyrinth. And a labyrinth is an amazing tool to help ourselves, our minds, stay very focused, one step at a time, one moment at a time, in making our way from the beginning to the end of this labyrinth. And on the left here, you actually see a picture of Scott and I with a group of our law students in part of our mindfulness activities when we come out here with our students and try to share with them some of these lessons of the mindful moment. And I wanted to share with you that, again, in this very precious spot, and I would invite really anybody on this call who would like to come and take a socially distanced walk to reach out to me, and I would bring you over to help you find this little spot. But as we turn our focus and here the left focus, we see Scott and our students. I think I took the picture, which is why I'm not in the picture. But then our focus shifts from what we were all seeing as we look out over the lake, and we can see not only our beautiful campus, but we see this beautiful lignum vitae tree, which we planted just 4 years ago, in fact. We planted this beautiful tree, the tree of life, which sits there, and it for me stands for many things. It's a beautiful cycle of life. But at its base of the tree, we actually see this monument, which is the picture on the right. This is a monument honoring one of our graduates, who, as you can see in this monument, she actually graduated in 2015 and sadly passed away. Friday would have been just 5 years. She passed away just months after her graduation in that stressful time. Sadly, when some of us can remember that stressful time between taking the bar and waiting to get bar results. And she did pass away of a drug overdose. It was very sad. But this monument and her tribute there reminds us to take one day at a time, which is what I take of this moment. I take the beauty of the place and the tribute to her life and the tree. And in fact, looking at Scott with our students and all the joy that is shared, I see so much positive, so much opportunity, but certainly coming from a moment that was fraught from great danger. And again, I would invite each and every one of us to reflect deeply on this. I know it has been a stressful time. It has been a stressful time for me. It's been a stressful time for my family, but there has been great opportunities here, and I'm just so happy that I can share this moment with you today and invite you to focus on those. With that, I would like to pass things over to my colleague and new friend, Josh Rooks, for some wise words.
Thank you very much, Janet, and thank you, Scott, for that introduction, and for everyone this opportunity to talk and discuss about an area that's very meaningful for me, these concepts of mindfulness, social connection, and ways that we can merge these two concepts and engage in behaviors consistent with promoting a sense of health and well-being. Today, I want to provide a little bit more of an introduction to what mindfulness is, both in the form of a presentation and discussion, but also, and hopefully we have the opportunity to practice a little mindfulness as well this morning. And I also want to discuss how we might apply these activities, these practices of mindfulness towards our connection with others, and how we may use them in helping to manage our emotional distress, which is in no short supply at this time. I think we can all agree to that. So without further ado, let me just jump into a little definition of mindfulness as proposed by John Kabat-Zinn. He describes mindfulness as the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And for just a moment, I want to dissect this definition a little bit. You can see just on this definition that mindfulness is not just a basic understanding or concept we can get, but it's an actual activity. It's a practice. It's something that takes time, something that we engage in. And this is a practice that relates to our attention. And where do we direct our attention? We direct our attention to the quality of this present moment. And the object of our attention may differ, may change based on the actual activity, the intention that we bring to the mindfulness exercise, whether it's the quality of the sensation of the breath, sensations of the body, or even our thoughts as they arise during an exercise or a practice. The third big component that comes to me from this definition is this concept of non-judgment, sometimes the most challenging aspect of mindfulness, because our immediate automatic response to whenever we observe or take stock of an experience is to characterize it, to evaluate it. This is something good, this is something bad, this is pleasant, unpleasant, I like this, I don't like this. And so this concept of non-judgment is instead maybe recognizing that natural tendency, letting it go, and instead engaging with this present moment with a sense of curiosity, of openness and exploration. And so I want to touch on some of what's already been addressed, these challenges that we are facing at this time. And as I'm kind of step back and considered everything I talk about today, a question that came to my mind is, well, what if we don't like what we find? Now, some of you listening right now may think to yourself, wait a second, Josh, this is the year 2020. You know, with the number of challenges that we're faced, why would I want to focus more intently on what's going on in this moment? Why would I want to look and sit with and be present with these challenges? I don't want to do that. I want to get over it. I want to get past it. I want to see this in my rearview mirror, not be present fully in this moment. So I want to address why it may be beneficial to be mindful, even when we look at and we take time and we look at what's going on in this moment is not naturally enjoyable at its face. Let's take this now to the concept of our social connections with others. And so research in this area has identified that there are three primary areas that we experience this quality of connection with others. There's the intimate relationships, our spouse, our romantic partner, a close relative, a close friend, where we feel this strong bond and affection and trust with another person. There's this more relational domain, which is maybe a broader friend group, work colleagues. It's where we could find a sense of companionship and support from others. And then if we kind of broaden our circle even further, we have this collective domain of social connection, our broader community. Maybe it's a religious or cultural group, our political affiliation, an arena where we find a shared sense of purpose, a shared interest with other people. And so I want to take a moment. As I mentioned before, mindfulness is about engaging our attention and the quality of our experience in this moment. The object of that attention may move or differ based on the exercise. And for a moment here, I want to do a little brief exercise with all of us where the object of our attention in this moment is the quality of our sense of connection with others. Maybe using these three domains as an anchor for that reflection. And so if you're willing, maybe we'll begin with a few breaths and just take a few moments now to reflect on your experience of connection in the areas of those intimate relationships, relational, and collective. And what domains do you find you sense a sense of greater connection? And what domains perhaps less so? What is that experience like, that sense of connection or disconnection? How do you experience that in your body in this moment? All right, very good. So somewhat of maybe a novel activity, something we don't do every day, if at all ever. And in this reflection, in this brief moment of mindfulness on our social connection, you may have likely noticed that the sense of connection is not so unitary and basic. It can be quite complex. We may experience strong connections in some areas of our lives, but in other areas, much less so. And that level of unique connection is going to be different for each one of us. The demands or the needs that we have for connection will be different for me as they are for you, and the different aspects of our life that we need connection may also be different as well. Now, if any of you, which I'm guessing perhaps all of us to some extent, felt a sense of lacking, at least in one area of our life, if not all of them, at this stressful time that we're finding ourselves. And what that experience is described as loneliness. Loneliness is whenever we have a disconnection or discrepancy between what we need in terms of our connection with others and what we actually experience. It's the sense of the discomfort. It's an unpleasant experience. But researchers in this area also identify this subjective sense of loneliness as an adaptive experience. Just like the feeling of hunger or thirst or even pain, they motivate these adaptive behaviors to care for ourselves, whether it's through food or drinking or moving away from a threat. So true is also loneliness. By acknowledging, by being aware of our loneliness, we're now provided the opportunity to engage in behaviors that may satisfy those needs in our life. And so returning to that question I posed before, why would I want to look at what's going on now if it's unpleasant, if I don't actually like it? Well, one answer may be that it then provides us the opportunity to inspire and guide our behaviors to fully care for ourselves at this time. And so I want to now, with the next slide here, expand beyond just loneliness and talk about distressing experiences overall. Again, why would I want to focus on this moment if it's characterized by feelings of depression, of anxiety, stress, of conflict? Each one of these terms may resonate with you in its own unique way. Well, one of the reasons is because whenever we experience something unpleasant, this natural, immediate, automatic response that we have is one that we may term as aversion. It's automatic and natural because, if I present to you something challenging or something difficult, uncomfortable, and I ask you, would you like this? Would you like more of this? Would you like it to stay the same? Would you like less of this? I think if we're all being honest, in most cases, we would say we want less. We want to get rid of it. And so this experience of aversion, this experience of rejection and trying to move away from our discomfort, moving away from these challenges, may manifest itself in a variety of different ways for each one of us. Perhaps I'm prone to distraction. When the conflict comes up on the news and I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm feeling distress, I'm feeling anxiety that boils up inside of me, maybe I'm turning to another glass of wine or another glass of alcohol in order to numb me from this uncomfortable experience that I'm having. Or maybe it's a conflict that arises in a conversation with my spouse, my romantic partner, and I don't like this uncomfortable feeling that I have, so I bury myself in distractions with work or other activities just to ignore or get rid of this feeling of discomfort within myself. Maybe others of us respond with numbing or even trying to problem solve or fix the situation. We can become wrapped up in this, what's called rumination, and recycling the same thoughts over and over and over again. And so by taking a mindfulness approach, when this discomfort arises, when the challenges arises, which they are going to happen throughout our day-to-day life, instead of trying to reject or averse ourselves, to remove it from ourselves, this almost incredibly contradictory approach, it's one of mindfulness, where I am now instead paying attention to, I'm being present in this moment to the challenges, to the difficulty that I'm going through, and I'm also bringing a sense of curiosity, non-judgment, of openness. We can basically sever this automatic response of aversion that at times, unfortunately, can be quite destructive for ourselves. And then by changing this relationship to our distress, by engaging in a sense of allowing, of accepting and observing, we provide ourselves the opportunity to, instead of reacting with aversion, we are able to now respond in ways that are consistent with a sense of health, well-being, and are consistent with our true goals and purpose that we may have. And so whether that's, a negative email that we don't like hearing, and instead of reacting with telling that person my piece of my mind, taking a few breaths, reflecting, being present with my experience, cultivating this opportunity to respond. Instead, when a conflict arises and I don't like what you said to me, instead of immediately biting back, taking a few breaths, being present, recognizing this experience and re-engaging, responding in a way that is more consistent with how I want to communicate with another person. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning, with the time we have left, I also want to engage in a short practice of mindfulness as well. We can talk about it all day, but what is lacking inevitably is the true experiential knowledge, this experiential understanding of what mindfulness is. So I wanted to provide a short exercise that may be something you can turn to, something that's accessible at any point in your day, but especially when something distressing may come up. That interpersonal conflict, that news article, again, whatever it may be, something that you can go to and be more present, reconnecting with yourself and reconnecting with your experience and allowing you to respond. So I anchored this exercise on the word bar, something that may be resonant for many of us here in the law profession listening. And it basically breaks it down to this. It starts with just taking a few deep, purposeful breaths, taking a moment to pause, and then attend on the quality of this experience in this moment. And then by doing so, we are now, again, as I mentioned, provided this opportunity to re-engage in whatever we're doing. We're provided this opportunity to respond more effectively instead of allowing us to kind of fall into that more automatic reaction that at times can be destructive, as I mentioned before. So for those listening here, if you are willing, I'm going to guide us through a brief exercise to actually engage in this moment here as well. So wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, you're walking, you're listening, if it's safe to do so, you may, for a moment, feel comfortable, if so, closing your eyes. We're just going to take a few moments to engage in this exercise. And so beginning with B, breathe. Taking a few moments to draw our awareness to the quality of our breath. Taking a few deep, purposeful breaths. And then directing our attention to the quality of our experience in this moment. What word might you use to characterize your emotional state at this time? Is this an emotion you feel with intensity that's high or low? How would you describe the experience of your mind here and now? Is it busy or calm? And then directing your attention as well, kind of scanning throughout the body. Perhaps you notice a sense of tension or tightness in the body. And if so, you may explore holding this tension on the in-breath, and on the out-breath, engaging with a sense of allowing or releasing. And then returning and resting your attention back on the sensation of the breath. Observing the rhythm of the body with each in-breath and each out-breath. Perhaps even noticing the temperature of the air as it passes in and out of the nose with each breath. And on the next few breaths, allowing the awareness to expand beyond the sensation of the breath with each inhale, more broadly filling the rest of the body this moment. Noticing the sensation of touch, points of contact where your body makes contact with the floor or the chair. Perhaps you've been observing the temperature in the room. And then when you're ready, taking a few more deep breaths. Opening your eyes. And returning to this next activity, carrying this quality of attention and awareness, providing the opportunity to respond, whichever's next. Okay, thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Gilbert Squires here, who I'm excited to hear more about as he addresses other concepts of mindfulness and how we can apply them in our day-to-day. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh and Janet and Scott. Josh, that was so wonderful to be in the bar, to be in this, to be barred in the bar. And it's an important pun on words, but it's really a powerful message that you have provided. And with your permission, I will build on it. Here we are today, and we are members of the bar. Our profession is inherently stressful. Life is inherently stressful. But the question always arises, at least for me, so if it is inherently stressful, life and the bar, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to get a prop because Janet mentioned this today. And I keep this on my desk, and it says crisis equal opportunity. But I keep it facing my clients because ordinarily they will come to me in a crisis, and we all have to step back and bar and realize that if we take a breath, if we pay attention, we are pausing and we realize that it all comes together and that all is well. As Professor Rogers mentioned, I celebrated this year my 50th year in the martial arts. And I started when I was 2, and I'm only 20. Actually not, I started when I was 12, and I am 62 now. I'm grateful to be, and you hear, and those who know me know that that theme of gratitude is one that manifests through my life. And my intention is not to be preachy, but just to share with you some things that work for me. Earlier, we heard of Dean Stearns, former student and her teacher now, who is a yogi, who essentially lives in that concept of union, which is what yoga stands for, the union of the spirit, the mind, and the body. Well, Aikido is the same, and in a few seconds, we will show you a little demonstration, but before the demonstration clicks on, let me set the stage. A dear friend of mine, he is a sensei at a dojo, and a sensei is a teacher. Anyone can be a teacher, and a shihan is someone who is a higher ranked teacher, and I'm one of those higher ranked teachers. But James Murphy Sensei, he asked me to please come and help, if I could ever help, in the promotion of some of his students. And what he meant by the help is really to bar, to breathe, to pay attention, and respond with them, to create an opportunity for growth and for learning. So before the demonstration, actually after the demonstrations of the students, they asked me to teach something. And I said, you know, I really cannot teach anything because at this level, and you'll see the man that was training with me, he had just been promoted to EQ, which is first degree brown belt in Aikido. And believe it or not, it takes a lot to be able to do that. So Hakan, who is from Turkey, an excellent student and a great human being, we were going to present a demonstration of being present. We were going to present, and excuse the redundancy, a demonstration of being with oneself, not getting ahead of oneself. And obviously we could do things and people would fly and all that, but we were not doing that with this exercise. We were teaching, and this is a teaching, to kind of move with where we are and be very committed and not do one of the Steven Seagal movies, which we could have done, but that was not the point. The point was, and I say this, that in Aikido, as in life, being present in the moment, non-judgmentally, I do so because my life depends on it. But they'll say, Gilbert, people are not jumping at you all the time and all that. That's true. They may not be physically jumping at me, but people are perhaps mentally jumping at me. And by being present, I'm simply not there. By being grateful, I'm simply not there. But what does that have to do with lawyers? I mean, judges want us to respond and our clients want us to respond, and we are taught that we've got to be zealous. Yes, we're taught that we've got to be zealous, but at the same time, we're taught that we have to be respectful, and being zealous does not mean that we cannot bar. So as we click on the video, I'll just pause and have you see it and reflect. Okay, so there was a lot that happened there. And oh, this young man flew and the other. But what you could not hear was my commenting with Hakan that by barring, by being present in the moment, non-judgmentally, no matter what he was going to do, that I was not going to react. I was going to respond. And that response could be as simple as not being there, as exemplified by stepping out of the way. And in the last moment, in the last clip before he allowed himself to be thrown, because I really didn't throw him, he attacked and he was so eager and he was a little frustrated because he was trying to get me and I wasn't there and I wasn't there. And even one of the students was smiling. We were all laughing at it, not at him, because that's what we do in life. We can't get it, we gotta go get it, we gotta go get it. And we don't realize that by, again, barring. And as I pause to do that and I'm breathing, the only thing that happened is that at that time that I decided not to move, but to mold with him and blend with him, it was an opportunity for him to fly. Now you say, well, why did he fly? Well, it means that actually you could break his arm and things like that, but that's not what we're doing because we want to practice with each other tomorrow. And working and breathing with him, he flew. And I want to get us back to, sure, okay, I want to get us back to intentionality and releasing the fear. And before I talk about the Hansasana, which can stay up, I want us to realize that we can release the fear, that these are very stressful moments. And fear, it's an acronym for many things, and I'm not going to use it that way, but fear is really a messenger that I need to do something different, that I need to respond differently. I can embrace that fear without being fearful because it's a natural reaction, and Josh can tell us more about it from a psychological point of view. It's a fight or flight response. We hear about that. Well, all these things are different cues that our brain, that our soul, and I'm doing this to my soul, our mind, our heart, my body, and the concept of the union in yoga. One of my nephews took that photo of me, and the photo is outside of my office, and we're revamping the website, so you'll see there. But some of those who saw us campaign about 3 years ago for president-elect of the Dade County Bar Association are familiar with that photo. I have a dear friend who said, that's kind of quirky. Why are you going to use that photo? Well, because it's me and I'm quirky, I said. But all kidding aside, as my time winds down here, I wanted to present the Hansasana, which you can do in a suit or you can do in with any costume that you want. And the point of the Hansasana is that once again, you are pushing with your breath and you're being present. And as Thich Nhat Hanh said, I was telling our colleagues on Friday, it just resonated with me when I saw it on Friday morning in my reading meditation, that life is a meditation. And people say, well, we have a hard time meditating. No. If we step back and just bar again, life is a meditation. When we wash clothes, when we chop wood, when we water the vegetables or drive the car, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, if the energies of mindfulness are present in our mind and body, then we are practicing meditation. And I purposefully underscored and highlighted mindfulness are present, mind and body, then we are. To underscore that we are present in gratitude in this moment. And I pray that everything I have said today has tied in with what you've heard from Janet, from Josh, and what you will hear from Scott. And it all blends together in this concept of bar, because we are the bar and we have an opportunity to breathe, accept presently, and respond, not react. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert, for bringing it into the fullness of what Janet set us in motion with, what Josh zeroed in on regarding mindfulness and the bar, and for showing us it in action, showing us what it means to be present, to know when to step aside, to have that wisdom, to know when to respond in a more engaged way, connecting. And this is very much about, everyone, how we can connect in ways that are meaningful and rich and useful and constructive and wise and compassionate for ourselves, connecting with ourselves and with each other in a world that is fraught and in a profession that is endlessly challenging. And yet we've signed up for this, and we have the opportunity to help bring a little bit of clarity from a place of chaos and conflict. And what could be more extraordinary than that? And what a charge we have in that regard. But to support each other, to have these conversations, and to practice in the ways that we each find useful is a part of that for ourselves and each other. And so to close our time together, and I'm so very grateful for getting to learn, as I have, very much so, from my dear friends who have been thinking through this presentation, and when we came together, modifying and tweaking it so that it can be helpful and of meaning to each of ourselves and to you all. So we'll close with a practice that's a mindfulness practice that draws upon the elements of nature in the hopes of tying together much of what's been spoken of explicitly and implicitly, and also giving us a movement practice. In a moment, I'm going to stand up. If you're able to comfortably stand up, do so. If you remain in your seat, that's fine too. It draws upon the elements of nature. It's known as the So Be Mindful movement practice. Why so be mindful? Well, you want to be mindful? So be mindful. Don't make it more challenging than it is. Don't bring more into it. Don't add more to it than is inherently there. And why the elements of nature? The tree is not trying. The tree is one of the elements that we'll work with in a moment. The tree represents the body. We have a body, strong, beautiful, steady, stable, growing, alive, part of its own life journey. The tree. Implicit in this is the wind. The clouds, the leaves are being blown with the wind, and the wind represents the breath. We are never not with, as long as we have the gift of this life, from the moment we took our first, and even before in other ways, meaning in the body, with the oxygen being provided to us, a nurturing of that earliest of experiences in this world, we have this breath. We can draw upon the breath intentionally and deliberately to feel more relaxed, and it flows one way or the other, and we can, as Josh reminds us, turn our attention and notice this breath. We have the clouds, which represent thoughts and feelings, forever coming and going and coming and going. And we have the sun, the spreading of warmth, our own kindness. It's here. At times it may feel like it's not. At times it may feel so overwhelming that we don't know how to find it and who to look to, but it's also within ourselves, and it's a spreading of warmth. The sun is a reminder, a symbolic reminder of, as well as the sun being the light of awareness, wisdom and compassion already here. And then we'll close with another element, which is the butterfly, because it was been brought up by everyone, and I'll bring it into this practice. So in the next 2.5 minutes, I will guide us as we close, and then we will turn it over to learn a little bit about what's coming up in the webinar series to come. So in whatever ways is comfortable for you all, we're standing. And as we do, we see in front of us the tree. And if you're sitting or standing, if the body, the posture is upright and stable, like a tree. We feel the rootedness of our feet against the ground. And if you're sitting, you feel the rootedness of your feet against the ground as the arms slowly come up to the side. And always be good to yourself. Outstretched like the branches of a tree as we breathe. The fingers gently move. These are intentional movements. We're not just wildly moving our fingers. The fingers represent the leaves of the tree. And then the arms come up. We have this open. We inhabit the three-dimensional space, which we so often forget about, it seems. And this is a posture that is vulnerable. It is open and receptive to what this moment brings our way, so we can be more fully responsive. Then the arms slowly come down, rest in front of us as we take a few slower, deeper breaths, breathing in and breathing out, the arms moving like the wind blowing gently, breathing in and out. One more slower, deeper breath, a reminder of this tree standing and this wind. We look at the hands for a few moments as they just move randomly in front of us, coming and going. Thoughts and feelings, always coming, always going, pleasant, unpleasant, and we're observing. The arms come down and we move to the sun as the arms come up over our head and they spread out, and we wish happiness for someone else. Bring someone to mind. Spread your own warmth. May they be happy. The arms come up and come down, and we wish for ourselves, may I be happy, may I be safe. A spreading of our warmth within, and then the arms come up, and however broad you'd like to have that circle be, may all beings be happy. In a world filled with struggles and triumphs and despairs, pleasure and pain, uncertainties, may everyone be happy. And then we close the body, the tree, the breath, the wind, thoughts and feelings coming and going, the warmth of our own true nature, and we're aware. And we are in many ways, as we slowly take our seat, aware of the movement of the body, of the breath as we do, realizing that we are a forest. It may have felt like that was our practice, but we are a forest. We sat together, the forest and I, we, merging into silence until only the forest remained. And perhaps a moment of gratitude The butterfly would have been the element of gratitude. We close this practice by bringing to mind something for which we are grateful. I'm grateful to the Florida Bar, to Patrick Stewart, Patrick Russell, to Jared, to Janet, to Josh, to Gilbert. And with that, we close our webinar presentation and time with you all. We wish you all well. And Patrick?
Thank you, Scott. What a wonderful and powerful webinar. Thank you again, Janet, Joshua, and Gilbert for sharing. You had a powerful impact and brought it together very well. I hope everybody has enjoyed the presentation and learned something that can help you. One takeaway I got out of all this is that when there's a crisis, while again, it may be dangerous, it does present opportunities. As a prime example of that is this very series itself. It was originally something that we were going to do 2 years ago as a live event. And because of the pandemic, it's turned into a virtual event, but it also has expanded and doubled in size. And now it's being recorded, and it's something that we can look at many, many, many months down the road. And so the exposure to other folks will be much greater than if it was just a live event. In closing, I'd like to remind you of the remaining schedule for the Be Well, Stay Well. Next up is Balancing Wellness and the Ever-Present Demands of Technology, which is by Elena Sanchez-Bryson. This webinar is on October the 8th at 11 a.m. in the Legal Services of Greater Miami. We hope you all can attend the remaining 5 webinars in this series. And if you can't do so because of your schedule, please know that they're being recorded and they will be available for offline purchase through the Florida Bar. I encourage all lawyers who are interested in mediation or want to become mediators to join the ADR section, as we have many powerful CLE programs such as the one that you've seen today, including our mentoring academies for both mediators and arbitrators. That is all I have. Thank you, and be well, stay well.